Does chivalry come into this, Kate, at all?
For me, what Will Smith did wasn't chivalrous, and I think we need to really change our ideas of what chivalry means. You know, the original meaning of it was to be courteous and respectful in, you know, medieval times for knights. And I think that we can all be chivalrous to each other. It's not about men protecting women or defending their honour.
Do you not secretly yearn for that protection? And to give men who are useless, completely useless in the world, all their role has been taken away. They're nothing but criticised by people who they work with all the time. And they just think, what is the point? Maybe the one thing you could do is...
Would you punch someone for me, Eamon? Is this what you're saying?
Yes, I would.
Would you?
I definitely would.
Oh, you see, this is right. The truth is, as a feminist, I have a conflict head and heart. My heart would be like, that's a really lovely thing to do, and I would be touched that you or my husband would want to protect my honour. But my head would say, that's not the right way to deal with it. And I think maybe a lot of people see that looking at it. I think it's particularly not the right thing to do, given the platform and the role model status that Will Smith carries.
Exactly. And would you be touched, though, or would you actually feel a bit disempowered and say, you know, hang on, I can stand up for myself and say my own piece. I don't need you to step in for me.
I just would think there are very few men who would walk away from a situation where they had to defend, where they felt themselves physically stronger than a woman. They would feel, I think they would feel very empty, they would feel like a failure. If there was an altercation in the street and I was beside you and I snuck off, you know?
I don't think it's about sneaking off, but I also don't think it's about, you know, aggressively going up and hitting someone in the face. I mean, that's a street altercation is a very different situation to the Oscars. It totally does.
Yeah, and you're right. None of it looks well. It's quite ugly. I think Will Smith, I thought it was appallingly threatening. I think it was right out of place. If he was a drunk in a pub on a Saturday night, we may have thought that would be typical behaviour. But unless he was on something or was, you know, was out of his head, why on earth would he have done that? He says love, didn't he say love?
Yeah, he says love, and it was, you know, insulting his wife he couldn't handle.
Well, exactly, and that's the problem with this narrative of the knight in shining armour, is that aggressive and violent acts can kind of get excused as being in the name of love or, you know, doing it to protect his family. But actually that's really not right. I think this idea of men having to protect women is really patronising, and it kind of makes us seen as weak and without our own agency, and that's...
And more confusion for men?
Well...
More confusion. See, you could look at your children.
Yeah.
You could look at your children and you would definitely see your role as to defend them in all circumstances. But what Kate is saying here, you can't really look at a female, you can't look at your wife, you can't look at your partner, your lover, whatever, and necessarily see that as your role.
Yeah, because she's not a child.
But equally, let's turn this
She's
around.
a fully grown woman.
Let's turn this around.
My wife had a row with me this morning.
Did she?
Because she said I treated her like a child. So she helped me with something and I said, good girl, thanks for that. And she went ballistic.
Good girl. She's not a girl, Eamon.
That's
she's
exactly
a woman.
what she said.
Well, there
That's
you
what
go.
she said.
But listen,
Yes.
let's turn this on its head. Would I ever act, you know, emotionally to protect my husband if someone mocked him? And I can see myself being protective of him, and I'm protective of other people around me, my children, my co-workers.
So is that not sexist?
No, but that's what I'm trying to say. But it's just how he handled it. And I think no one can question the emotional response of seeing your wife being publicly humiliated or embarrassed or upset. So perhaps we're all being a bit oversensitive in that regard, but it's just the response. And I guess it's the thing about violence not being the answer.
OK, say it wasn't violence. Where do you stand on opening the door and walking on the inside of the curb and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and carrying the bag.
Yeah.
I had a real thing about wanting to be able to lift my own suitcase into the overhead locker on the plane, so I actually got my strength up to be able to do that. I think it's great to offer to help people in that way, but men and women should offer to help each other. You know, if I saw a man struggling with his bags trying to get through a door, I'd help you, Eamon.
I'm on a crutch. And that's why my wife was helping me with something this morning, and I had to wake her up to do it, and I was really appreciative. And it's a sort of quite an Irish phrase to say, oh, good girl, that's brilliant. Sure. She went mad, well, basically.
Bless her.
Oh, bless her. What about me? What about my feelings? Doesn't matter.
No.
Doesn't matter. So what do you make overall, just of the the whole situation. I mean, you're watching that. When we were watching it yesterday, when we came in here, we couldn't believe our eyes. We thought it was staged. We thought it was staged, and then you thought, no. Then the swearing took place, which no one ever shows now. The swearing situation, and I can't understand if Jada, his wife, was ill. And you would be furious, wouldn't you? You would be absolutely furious if there was something wrong with her and that he interjected that. But overall, what did you make of the whole scenario?
I just thought it was completely baffling. If you actually watch the clip, Will Smith's laughing along at first and Jada looks absolutely furious. And then all of a sudden he just turns and out of nowhere goes up on stage and slaps Chris Rock. It was unbelievable, and you don't get to see Jada's reaction, but I wonder actually what it would have been, you know, like I'm sure that she wasn't happy that he did that.
Well, they looked happy enough at the after parties, all posing as a family, didn't they? Not too remorseful.
And the fact that was the reaction, you know.
Kate Wells, we have to leave it there. Really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you for coming in.
Kate,
Thanks so much.
I'll get up and open the door for you.
Yeah, can you please?